Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Ty Med, and I'm an Assistant Director with Academic and Membership Affairs. Today, we would like to provide an overview of the 2023-2024 NCAA Division I pilot legislative process that will be used to adopt all legislative proposals during this academic year. First, we would like to provide a general overview of the 2023-24 legislative year and meeting cadence for Division I governance. The Division I Council is returning to a quarterly meeting cadence and will no longer meet once a month. The in-person council meetings in October, January, and June are the designated legislative meetings where proposals in the legislative cycle may be considered. In one of the pilot processes, the Division I men's and women's basketball oversight committees, as well as the football oversight committees, will have limited authority to adopt legislative proposals in specific areas. However, oversight committee action is subject to review by the Council, and legislative proposals adopted by oversight committees will not be final until the conclusion of the specified Council meeting. The pilot legislative processes are a result of the work of the Division I Transformation Committee, Division I Council, Division I Legislative Committee, and Division I Board of Directors to provide the membership a legislative process that is more nimble and adequately responds to membership needs. There are two standard legislative processes in the pilot. One for the areas of legislation that sport oversight committees have authority over, and another for all other sports and areas of legislation. The pilot processes are intended to reduce bureaucracy within the decision-making structure while maintaining appropriate checks and balances over the actions of sport-specific committees. The two processes run on parallel tracks and are designed to provide the membership consistency throughout the legislative cycle. Additionally, the pilot processes are designed to provide the membership multiple opportunities to provide feedback, comments, and input on legislative proposals. As opposed to the previous standard legislative cycle, there is no direct access for Division I member conferences to introduce proposals into the pilot process. However, the pilot process provides member conferences with multiple opportunities to submit concepts to the relevant committees and to suggest amendments to introduced proposals. By limiting the authority to introduce proposals to only the oversight committees and the Division I Council, there is hope that conferences will work together to submit concepts to committees that already have broad-based support, as opposed to unilaterally submitting a concept without collaborating with colleagues. In the following specified areas, sport oversight committees are provided authority to adopt legislation related to the sport: conduct of athletics personnel, or Bylaw 11, recruiting, or Bylaw 13, playing in practice seasons, or Bylaw 17, processes and procedures related to the administration of the regular season and championship, which are typically found in Bylaw 31, and sportsmanship and other ethical behaviors. To reiterate, while sport oversight committees have authority in these areas, proposals are not final until the specified council meeting. A sport oversight committee may introduce a legislative proposal at least 90 days before the October, January, or June in-person council meetings. For consideration by the council during the specified meeting, an oversight committee must introduce a proposal by the specified date. Proposals will be drafted as they are introduced and made available for review on LSDBI a week following the introduction deadline. Proposals will be available for membership review during an initial comment/feedback period. The membership and other committees, such as the Legislative Committee, have the opportunity to provide feedback and comments on the proposal. If a Sport Oversight Committee intends to take action on a proposal, it should meet within 7 days after the initial feedback period. After the comment period, the Sport Oversight Committee reviews the feedback or suggested amendments and may take action on the proposal. Action taken by the Sport Oversight Committees could include adopting or defeating the proposal, tabling the proposal, withdrawing the proposal, or amending the proposal. If a committee amends a proposal, it could move to adopt it as amended or send the proposal out for additional feedback prior to taking any action. Proposals adopted by the Sport Oversight Committee will be available for review on LSDBI. A proposal adopted by a Sport Oversight Committee enters a comment period before the Council has an opportunity to review it during the applicable in-person meeting. The membership and committees have the opportunity to provide additional feedback, including feedback on any amendments that were made to the proposal by the Sport Oversight Committee. During the applicable meeting, the Council has an opportunity to review a proposal by a Sport Oversight Committee and any feedback or suggested amendments. The Council has the authority to allow the proposal to remain as adopted, amend the proposal, or defeat the proposal. Legislation amended and adopted by the Council shall be considered final at the conclusion of the Council meeting during which it is adopted. The NCAA Division I Board of Directors, during any meeting, may review and take action related to legislation adopted or defeated by a Sport Oversight Committee or the Council. Proposals in all other areas will follow a similar process. Sport Oversight Committees or the Council may introduce legislative proposals. Other standing committees, such as the Legislative Committee or Student Athlete Experience Committee, may recommend the Council introduce proposals. During this process, the Legislative Committee will review all introduced proposals and provide relevant feedback, which could include recommending a sport-specific proposal be extended to some or all other sports. The introduction, publication, review, and council action timeline in this process follows a parallel track to proposals introduced in the areas in which Sport Oversight Committees have authority. One aspect of the legislative process that has been slightly amended is the rescission process. A proposal adopted with less than a 75% majority vote of the council members present and voting will be subject to a 30-day rescission period. A proposal adopted with a 75% majority vote or greater of council members present and voting shall not be subject to the rescission process. A proposal will be rescinded upon submission of rescission requests from at least 2/3 of all active Division I institutions. An amendment that pertains only to football shall be rescinded in the applicable subdivision upon submission of rescission requests from at least 2/3 of all active Football Bowl subdivision or Football Championship subdivision institutions. A proposal may be considered as emergency legislation in circumstances in which significant values are at stake and the use of the regular legislative process is likely to cause significant harm or hardship to the association or the Division I membership because of a delay in considering the proposal in the standard or expedited legislative processes. The Board of Directors or the Council may adopt emergency legislation during any meeting. Adoption of emergency legislation requires 2 separate votes of at least an 80% majority of the members of the applicable entity present and voting. The first vote is to determine whether the proposal meets the definition of emergency legislation, and the second vote is on the merits of the proposal. When possible, notice of an issue to be considered as emergency legislation will be provided in the meeting materials for the applicable entity. However, notice is not required. A proposal adopted as emergency legislation shall be considered final at the conclusion of the meeting, either the Council or Board of Directors, during which it is adopted. The Board of Directors, during any meeting, may review and take action related to legislation adopted or defeated by the Council. A proposal adopted as emergency legislation is not subject to a rescission process. A proposal may also be considered as expedited legislation in circumstances in which the proposal does not meet the definition of emergency legislation, but a delay by requiring consideration of the proposal in the standard legislative process would cause a disruption in the efficient administration of the impacted activity or function. The Council may adopt expedited legislation during any meeting. A recommendation for the Council to adopt expedited legislation must be made by a Council Standing Committee at least 30 days before the next Council meeting. The recommendation must be included in the published Council meeting materials. Adoption of expedited legislation requires 2 separate votes of at least a 2/3 majority of members of the Council present and voting. The first vote is to determine whether the proposal meets the definition of expedited legislation, and the second vote is on the merits of the proposal. Expedited legislation is a combination of what previously existed in the legislative process as non-controversial legislation and the modernization track. The membership has expressed concerns about the Council adopting non-controversial legislation without adequate notice. The process for expedited legislation should provide the membership enough notice to prepare for potential Council action. Additional resources are available to the membership to learn more about the 2023-24 pilot legislative process. This includes resources available on the Legislative Actions and Issues website that provide, in narrative format, an overview of the pilot process, as well as a more visual depiction of the process that outlines the key dates. Finally, you can learn more about the pilot process by tuning into Episode 6 of the Inside the NCAA, the AMA Experience podcast.